Hello, so welcome back to another video. I have not filmed in about 3 weeks, so today we're just going to do a chatty little get ready with me. I'm moisturising straight away because my skin, I've just washed my face and my skin feels like I've had about 30 facelifts. My skin is like, ooh. I'm going to apologise in advance as well because I'm going to use like my makeup mirrors and stuff during this video, but I am probably going to look in the viewfinder as well just to check that I'm still in focus, vibing and thriving. So we're just going to do a little get ready with me, but there is, you know, there's a few things I want to talk about, just a bit of life updates and just like a chatty get ready with me because I've not done one of these in probably about a year. I think the last time I did a chatty get ready with me was way before Texas, maybe last summer, about a year ago, recreating the look that I did for Beyonce last week because one, I did get a lot of requests when I posted my selfies and stuff and questions about products, but also it lasted 14 hours. This makeup is also very similar to the makeup that I did in Texas for the second day of shooting, I think it was, and it photographs really well. So if you need like a concert look, a festival look, but you're a bit like me and not super into like super out there looks, you want it to last but you don't want it to look too much, this is going to be perfect for you. Let me grab a clip so we can get my hair out and we can just get into it. Life updates, I feel like let's do some life updates. First life update would be I got some new piercings yesterday. So I got my conch done and I got both my second lobes. I've wanted some more piercings for ages and I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew I wanted more on this ear, but I am going to start decorating this one. But I've had my helix done for years. If you've ever had like a cartilage piercing, if you know, you know, like they take so long to heal, and with sleeping and stuff, I don't want to have fresh cartilage piercings on both ears at the same time. Anyone was wondering, because a lot of people say the conch is really painful. I'm not going to say it's not because I know that pain is different for everyone, but for me yesterday, my conch was probably like 3 out of 10. My second lobes were like a 6 out of 10. They like really nipped. So take from that what you will. I have a high pain threshold, but I'm scared of pain, so I like panic, which is weird because I feel like people with a high pain threshold don't worry about pain, but I do. So I was like, let's do the conch first, and then she did it and I was like, ah. I mean, it wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't painful. And then she did my second lobes and I was like, my eyes were watering. But yeah, I went to Astrid and Miu. I know that loads of people do ads for them. I'm not big time enough for that. This is not an ad. I fully paid for it. But yeah, with cartilage, because you've got to keep it in a long time, I just thought I'd rather go somewhere where I'm really going to like the jewellery because I've got to keep it in for a long time. So life updates and makeup time. I'm just using, I think this is the Bare Brows. Yeah. Super Lift and Hold Brow. My eyebrows look hilarious right now, so I just sort of like go back and forth until I'm happy with them. I don't like a fully laminated brow look. I know that's what most people use this for. I just like this because I feel like it makes my eyebrows look thicker without adding any colour in, and it does keep my eyebrows in place. So they do move a little bit still. Just back combing them. They do move a little bit, but they don't move around anywhere near as much as they would if I was using like my, I think it's my Collection like clear mascara. So I just leave my eyebrows with just gel on them at the moment. Sometimes I'll fill them in with a bit of pencil, but I want to recreate exactly what I did last week and I didn't do any of that. So eyes, I'm not doing anything dramatic, so I'm just going to pop a bit of concealer on and then I'm going to go in with a powder to set that, and then I do a bit of bronzer and then I use like a dark brown eyeshadow as a bit of liner, a lighter colour on like my inner lid, and then that's it. I nearly bought a house, not a house, I nearly bought an apartment. God, this has made me realise I've really not actually sat down and like just talked about, just had a catch up with my pals for a long time. I nearly bought an apartment. I didn't buy the apartment in the end. I'm not gonna keep you hanging. Not that anyone cares that much anyway. Started looking for a property and I nearly bought an apartment, but I won't go into it. There was a big issue, which would be, it would have caused me like a huge issue when it comes to reselling the property. It also would have thrown a lot more spanner in the works with getting a mortgage. So I did get my mortgage in principle, but with the information that we then found out, it would have been the percentage probably would have been higher. I probably wouldn't have got as good of a percentage on the mortgage rate. I don't understand what any of this stuff means. This is just what the man told me. And it just would have caused issues further down the line. That's all I'm gonna say. So I decided to pull out, but yeah, I'd had like my offer accepted. I got my mortgage in principle, which to be honest, I'm still very happy about. I struggle to say I'm proud of myself for things. That's something we're going over in therapy. I've started therapy, by the way. I'll tell you a bit about that. But I was actually quite proud to get my mortgage in principle, because I don't know if it's the same in America, but in the UK, when you're self-employed, especially when you do what I do, it's they want you to jump through a lot of hoops. It's a lot easier to get a mortgage when you are employed in England, basically. And they'll give you better mortgages as well, even if you are earning less, because they see it as more reliable and stable, which I do understand. But also at the same time, when you're employed, technically you could get made redundant at any point. So it's like, I get it, but I don't. I do think it's a bit unfair how they treat self-employed people when it comes to getting a mortgage. At least now I know I'm able to get a mortgage. My mortgage in principle was actually pretty decent as well. But to be honest, I think it was a blessing in disguise, because whilst the price on the property was actually very good, like it was a central Leeds property and they're very expensive, but it was a very, very, very good price. It was very unique as well. It had like exposed brickwork, like it was really nice. The mortgage interest rate was not good. Like it really, really wasn't good. So I think it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. So yeah, I nearly bought a house and then didn't. Not a house, an apartment, sorry. But I nearly bought my first property. It's not that I don't still want to buy somewhere. I do still want to buy somewhere, but I'm not in any rush, because I don't need to be, if that makes sense. And I don't want to overpay for something, whether it's like the mortgage rate itself or the property price. So we're just gonna wait it out. I don't think I've outwardly said on here, I've definitely spoken about on Instagram, that I go to therapy now, but I go to therapy every other week. And I started about September, October time. I started just before I went to Texas. Oh my God, it's genuinely been life-changing. I feel like I've just had a lot of life changes over the past 6 months, maybe a bit longer, maybe like 9 months. I just feel like my brain is sort of not altering, but I personally feel like, and I definitely spoke about this on YouTube last year, I really didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel very confident the way I looked, but also I feel like from going to therapy, I've sort of realised I just didn't feel very confident in myself. And I feel like then it just sort of manifests outwardly in like every single way. So as a result, didn't feel confident in how I looked, didn't feel confident in like my abilities, was really like the self-talk that I would give myself is like really, really, really mean, and it's just not very helpful, to be honest. I also do have anxiety. No, it's not self-diagnosed. I got diagnosed with that when I was about 19, and it's recently, again, it's been quite bad, but I just sort of function consistently at like a pretty medium to high level of anxiety normally, and then it like ebbs and flows in terms of how bad it is. So that was another reason for starting. So yeah, I started going to therapy for a multitude of reasons. Those are like a little bit of it, but there's more to it, but I'm not really not going to bore you with it, guys. But I did start going to therapy, and it's been really, really, really helpful. I understand it's a huge privilege to be able to pay for therapy, and I understand that not everyone can afford to go. MAC palette I've had for a very, very, very long time, and I just use this like very dark brown with a MAC angled brush. I used to use this for my eyebrows, and I just do a very like soft sort of wing, tiny wing, sort of smoked out a little bit on my outer corner. If anyone is watching this and they're interested in therapy, if you live near a university, people who are doing like degrees where they're going to go into like counselling or therapy, will often like do discounted rates, so check if there's something around you like that. I've been going every other week, and it's honestly been life-changing. I've definitely learned a lot more about myself that I didn't realise. And the purpose of therapy is not to, like, you know, become this person that diagnoses everyone around you with issues, but it has definitely helped me understand the people around me a bit more. And it's helped me sort of process a lot of things. Like, I get asked sometimes on Instagram, I do like weekly Q&As, I get asked about, you know, what it's like sort of sharing my life, sharing everything about myself, or sharing everything about my life all the time. And I do definitely share like a decent amount. I would say I'm quite open online, you know, I won't shy away from topics. You know, I want to help people by talking about my experiences with things, but I definitely don't share everything. There's actually a lot of things that I purposely will keep completely offline. I'm then just going to use this one that's like hip hand, this tiny little nudie colour here. In therapy, it's just sort of helped me to sort of process things a bit more, because I'm definitely someone who just like finds humour in things and will just sort of laugh things off. But actually there's a lot of things that happened growing up, there's a lot of things that happened in the past few years that have actually really impacted me, and I didn't maybe realise how much it had impacted me until I started going to therapy, which sounds like it's a bad thing. It sounds like therapy's making me overthink things or making things worse, but it's actually been so helpful. I feel more confident in myself as a person. When I was 14, I was on and off with someone, and I've always minimised this. When I was 14, I was in a relationship on and off with someone who essentially was like emotionally, verbally, and to be honest, I won't go into it like in detail, but to be honest, like physically abusive towards me. And I've always minimised that because I've always thought it sounds ridiculous because I was 14. But when I've gone over it in therapy, my therapist has been like, do you not actually think it's actually, not that there's a worse age for something to happen at, but she was like, it's quite interesting that you would write it off as not that serious because you were 14. Whereas her perspective on it was sort of, you were 14, that's actually a lot to go through. Which is, it's been very eye-opening, and I feel like, yeah, like I said, I always would make a joke about things or minimise things. By the way, this shade looks way too dark, but I'm matching to the rest of my body, Luminous Silk shade 6, and I've used about 2 pumps. When I am going somewhere, which I was last week, obviously I went to see Beyonce, when I'm going somewhere, I like to really put on a bit more makeup, especially if you know you want to take pictures. I would always recommend putting a bit more on, because the camera will always make you look like you have maybe 20 to 30% less on than you do. But yeah, I feel like therapy is just making me like the best possible version of myself, and it's something that I really want to continue with. It is, oh fuck, I've just hit my conch. It is something that I will continue with as well. Like, I don't have any intentions of stopping anytime soon. It's definitely made me realise as well, like, I've grown up, and I know a lot of people can relate to this, so I'm going to speak about it. I have grown up thinking there is something wrong with me because I'm a bit quieter, or because I'm not super interested in being the loudest person in the room. I am that person who will get asked, like, are you okay? At like social events, people will be like, are you okay? You know, you're very quiet. And I know that people, you know, they don't mean it in a bad way, but I've been in so many scenarios where people will make comments like that, or people will actively comment on how introverted, shy or quiet I am all through school. Oh, you know, she's really smart, she knows her stuff, but she should speak more, she should put her hand up more, she needs to come out of her shell more. And in telling someone from such a young age, because it was literally every single parent's evening, in telling someone from such a young age that they need to come out of their shell more, you are inadvertently implying that there's something wrong with the way that they are, or that they're not being themselves, when some people are just on the quiet side. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like, I feel like being introverted, and I know that being an introvert and being quiet isn't the same thing, but a lot of people who are introverted are also very quiet, so bear with me. I feel like being quiet or being on the introverted side is seen as like a journey on the way to becoming an extrovert. Does that make sense? And I know a lot of people who are quiet or introverted want to become more extroverted, and that's fine if it's what you genuinely want, but I feel like we're sort of treated as like a subhuman species that's just weird, and you know, we'll get there someday. Like, people make comments like, oh, I used to be like that when I was younger, you know, you'll flourish, and it's like, no, some people actually just aren't interested in being the loudest person in the room. Or I would rather sit and listen. Like, I was somewhere at the weekend and I was saying, like, because they were asking me why I don't drink much, because I don't drink much, and I was just saying, you know, reasons for not drinking, and then I was saying also, like, you know, I'm not really interested in like being the loudest person in the room. In a social situation, I'd rather sit and listen than like sit and talk. Obviously around friends, family, Dan, I'm a lot louder. and I speak a lot more, but I do have social anxiety, so mine's like really wrapped up because I am more on the quiet side anyway. I definitely am more introverted than extroverted. But then around really close people, I'm probably quite extroverted. So I'm like an introverted extrovert, but then I have social anxiety as well. So the way that my therapist phrased it was, you know, there's nothing wrong with being quiet, there's nothing wrong with being shy, but she was like, being introverted is a way of being, it's who you are. Social anxiety gets in the way of who you are because it stops you being able to be yourself in social settings. And I think that's just the perfect way of putting it. And ever since she's put it like that, I'm really trying to decipher what's me and what is my social anxiety. So little things that I've been trying is like, when I go to a shop, for example, I will try not to use a self-checkout. I'll try to actually go to a person so that I'm getting more comfortable with speaking to strangers in person, because I find it really hard. I genuinely find it really hard. I'm a very awkward person. Another tip that she gave me that's been amazing is, if you ever don't know what to say, just ask questions. 90% of humans love being asked questions, because we all, even the quiet ones, most of us do like speaking about ourselves to an extent, or like something that we're passionate about. We love speaking about that stuff. So ask people questions, because then it takes the like focus of the conversation off you, and also it just gives you a lot more cues of things to talk about. Because with a stranger, put me in a room with a stranger and I would like really struggle to know what to talk about, whereas now I just ask so many questions. And like, because I really like listening, I feel like my social anxiety has calmed, and it allows me to listen to people, which is something I really struggled with before. I would be so caught up on thinking, what the fuck am I gonna say next, that I couldn't listen to people when they were speaking to me. It's like I'd black out in social scenarios where I was feeling like a heightened anxiety. I would just like black out. I couldn't focus on what they were saying. I wouldn't know what to say. You know, it's also on like other people. I don't want anyone to think I'm like rude or not listening to them. So yeah, that's something that I've been working on. Just some little tips there for any of my social anxiety girlies. But yeah, I've grown up like thinking there's something really wrong with me because I'm not super loud, and I'm now realizing and unlearning in therapy all the sort of stuff I've been told, whether it's school or like wider society. If you are on the quiet side, you are literally treated, like I said, as like some sort of subhuman person who's on their journey to being an extrovert. No, it's just two different ways of being, and you don't have to transition into being an extrovert. It's not the only way to be. To be honest, you know, extroverts have amazing qualities. Introverts also have qualities that extroverts don't have. I'm not saying extroverts are not good listeners, but what I am saying is introverts tend to be, generally speaking, good listeners. We have a lot of attributes and a lot to bring to the table without feeling like we want to be the loudest at the table. And I don't want anyone who's watching this who's an extrovert, I don't want anyone to feel bad or feel like they're now doing things wrong because they're on the louder side. But it's just crazy how sort of embedded it is that there's something wrong with being quiet. Like, why are you being so quiet? Like, I've made jokes on Instagram about it. I think quiet people should just start asking the loudest people in the room, why are you so loud? Like, if people are so comfortable to say things like, why are you being so quiet, what's wrong? You know, the people who are like the loudest in the room, shouting the loudest, why are you being so loud? What's wrong? Because maybe there's something under that. Maybe they're in a confidence crisis. Maybe that's why they're being a bit on the loud side. Or maybe they're just loud, and that's fine. There's just different ways of being, but I completely thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I needed to work on it, and I'm now realizing social anxiety is something that I want to work on, but who I am as a person in terms of being more on the introverted side, being on the quieter side, is actually a strength, and it helps me a lot. So I'm not wanting to change that anymore, but I do want to work on my social anxiety. So yeah, it's honestly, it's been life-changing, not to be dramatic. It's really helping me sort of come more into my own. I've always been a people pleaser. I've lived my entire life as a people pleaser. It's only really the past 6 months I've started to know that it's okay to say no. Especially in certain situations. There's definitely situations where I find it easier to say no, and I have always found it easier, but there's other situations where I've always just felt like I can't say no, and now I'm starting to have more of a sort of voice and be comfortable with actually saying no. And yeah, it's crazy because when you've grown up being a bit of a, when people are used to you being a bit of a people pleaser and just going with the flow, you will get pushback. If anyone is on the journey from not being a chronic people pleaser anymore, you are going to get pushback. Someone who says no even 20% of the time is more difficult to deal with than someone who people are used to saying no 0% of the time. You will get pushback. If people, even from like the most well-meaning people around you, they will find it hard to adapt to because it's a different way of being. But when you're not people pleasing anymore, you will actually have better connections with the people around you, because people, I think it was like an Aware and Aggravated podcast episode, but he was saying when you're like constantly people pleasing, you're sort of robbing people of a genuine connection to you, because you're just saying yes to everything or just going with the flow even when you don't want to. So you're not being like honest with people. And it's not to say like start being horrible to people and be completely selfish, but it is okay to say no to things sometimes. And therapy has really helped me with that. Concealer, I'm just using the Kozas concealer. Proceed with caution with this because I've seen that it breaks a lot of people out, but I got this last week. I've used it 4 times since, and I love this concealer. The NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer does not work for me. I bought that 2 months ago. Don't know where they got the word radiant or creamy from. On me, it's so dry. I find it very dry. I don't find it radiant, and I don't find it creamy. This is like a hydrating concealer, and it's really, really, really good. I don't use a wet beauty blender with it. I tried that and it sort of just peeled the concealer off. So I use a dry beauty blender, and as you can see, I've left it for like a couple, maybe like a minute or so, and then just leave it, and then I'm just gonna blend it out now. But yeah, therapy is therapizing. Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying my sort of therapy journey into not becoming a different person, but just, I feel like my therapist put it like you're becoming you before your self-esteem, confidence, everything just took a complete battering. Very hard to explain. I just sort of feel like I'm more myself without sort of mirroring or just sort of being impacted so much by everything that sort of happened since I was like 14 onwards. Because fuck me, a lot of shit has happened. Someone asked me to speak about sort of getting your body goals and like the reality of becoming your body goals and what it's actually like. And I just feel like this is such an interesting topic in general. I view this the same way that I view anything in life. People think it's a job that they want, a certain job position. People will think it's a certain amount of money that they want. People will think it's a certain car that they want. People will think it's a certain lifestyle that they want, a certain partner that they want, a certain friendship group that they want. And I'm not saying that people don't genuinely want those things, because they very well may. That is possible. It's not impossible. They very well may want those things, but it's the same with anything. Like, people will get all the success and then they'll realise they're actually still not happy, or they'll move the goalposts. And I personally think fitness and body goals works the same way. Now, I don't doubt there will be caveats to this. There will be people who start, you know, a fitness journey and they get to their goal and they're just completely happy, and they're just completely happy with it, and they're happy with that then, and they just maintain it and they go about their life. There will be those people. I, however, I'm not one of those people. When I started getting into the gym, it's a very like sort of mixed, windy journey. So I might actually do an updated fitness journey if anyone wants one, but I do have one already on my channel, which I'll leave linked below. But the long story short, without going into the caveats, I've always wanted to gain weight. I've always wanted to be bigger. I always wanted bigger legs. I always wanted a bigger bum. I'm using the Huda Tantor right now, by the way. With this, by the way, because I was getting patchy bronzer, you want to make sure that you sort of pat as opposed to like swiping. It helps a lot. If you find that your like bronzer and stuff goes patchy, make sure that you're sort of using more of a patting motion as opposed to being like, but yeah, always wanted to be bigger, always wanted to grow my legs, always wanted to, that's not really blended properly, let me blend that. Always wanted to grow my legs, always wanted to be bigger, always wanted this, always wanted that. And that was my sort of innings to a fitness journey. However, then when you do build muscle, or let's say you want to lose weight, when you lose weight, you might think, oh, well, now I actually don't like how small I am, and now I want to gain a bit of weight back. And there's nothing wrong with moving goals as you go. I would just describe it as like you just sort of shift the goalpost. As soon as you hit one goal, there will then be a next goal, and that's not necessarily a bad thing to have, because maybe it keeps you going, maybe it keeps you motivated. It's not like an inherently evil thing to keep moving the goalposts, but it does become an issue when you are just never happy, and as a result you're not enjoying the process, and you're just sort of seeing fitness as a punishment rather than enjoying it. So whereas I am someone who will shift the goalposts, I genuinely enjoy the gym. I don't see it as punishment, and I really enjoy what I do in the gym. So it really does depend on the person, but you can definitely go down a slippery slope with it, because you think you want one thing, and then when you get there you realise, well, actually no, I think maybe I want to gain a bit more weight. Or if you've gained weight, then you think, oh, well, I miss this part of me looking this way, but then in order for my legs to look this way, my stomach does have to look this way, and all this sort of stuff. And I honestly feel like, and I'm not ragging on influencers, because the irony is what I do would come under influencing for part of my work. I'm in no way, I don't want to say this to like rag on influencers, but I do feel like the fitness space and this idea of you can build your dream body, you can do this, you can do that. And I don't want to discourage people from going after their dream body. I really don't. I want to encourage people to move their body and work towards goals, because as much as some people will sit and tell you that you are the spawn of Satan for having aesthetic goals, I do not have an issue with people having aesthetic goals. The issue comes in when nothing is ever enough and you just go down a bad path and you never like how you look. The body dysmorphia creeps in, which is very common in the fitness industry. That's when just having aesthetic goals becomes an issue. But if you've got aesthetic goals and performance goals, they can go hand in hand. And I think it's really weird that women, because it's never men, you would never see men getting ragged on for wanting, you know, bigger biceps or wanting to lose a bit of weight or wanting to shred for summer. But if a woman wants to do it, it's like, oh my god, stop the press, she's fucking Satan reincarnated. I just think, no. Like, people are allowed to have aesthetic goals. If you don't agree with it, that's okay. But I feel like sometimes people can project, maybe if having aesthetic goals really mess them up mentally and, like, you know, led them down the path of eating disorders. I understand that they are then viewing people having aesthetic goals through that lens, and therefore they will think there's no way it can be healthy to have any aesthetic goal whatsoever. But everyone's different, and it can be healthy for some people. But I feel like the fitness industry, especially on social media, it does come off as though you can have it all. You can have everything that you want. You can you can build your dream body completely, 100%. And it's a nice message, and you know, it would maybe discourage people from going down the surgical route. I get it, it's a nice message, but I was having this conversation with a client the other week. She's done a bulk, right? Very common for people in the fitness space who want to grow to embark on a bulk. So she recently has done a bulk. She's absolutely killed it. She looks sensational. Then she started to feel very uncomfortable with her midsection, because when you bulk, you don't just gain weight on your legs and ass or build some amazing back muscles. You gain weight everywhere. Now, where you gain weight, how it distributes and how that looks on your body, where you gain weight the most, where you store fat the most, will be different for everyone. But eventually, you will gain weight everywhere. If you're bulking long enough, you're gonna gain weight everywhere. You can't spot, obviously you can spot in the term of like, you can focus on a specific muscle, but in terms of the body fat that comes with bulking, you don't get to choose where that wants to go. Some people will tell you that you can. In my opinion, I think they probably will usually be selling a program and they want to take your money. You cannot choose where the body fat goes, right? So a lot of girls, myself included, will embark on bulks, and then they'll get towards the end of the bulk, and by the way, I use a very light dusting of the Charlotte Tilbury powder under my eyes, and then on top of that I go in with my RCMA, and a little dry sponge. Not the same one that I use the concealer with. It's the same looking sponge, but it's not the same sponge. And I will sort of put a bit more powder over it and then powder elsewhere on my face to lock everything in. Anyway, the girlies embark on bulks and then they get uncomfortable with body fat elsewhere. The issue that usually comes in for people, and I honestly think this is probably why some people don't like bulking and cutting. I still don't have an issue with it. It is something that I do. But do I think it takes a couple goes to work out what you're willing to sacrifice and how you actually like your body to look? I do think it takes a few goes, because they will then embark on a fat loss phase. This client has now started a fat loss phase, which is fine, but she's very, very, very concerned about losing size on her glutes. Now, she's built muscle everywhere, and she has built muscle on her glutes. Like, can confirm that is not just fat, she has built muscle on her glutes. But will there have been fat that has also gone on her glutes? Yes. Therefore, when you cut, you're not losing muscle unless you're doing a crazy cut. The chances are you're not losing muscle. Will you be losing body fat? Yes. And will you lose body fat everywhere? Yes. You can't choose, just like you can't choose where it goes, you can't choose where you lose it. So her glutes will get smaller because the body fat around her glutes, on her bum, will come down over time. It's inevitable, it's unavoidable, she can't avoid it. So that's gonna come down. And she was worrying about her bum getting smaller and really sort of panicking about losing gains. And I was like, look, you're not gonna lose gains, but you will lose body fat in the area. And then we had a bit more of like a deeper conversation about sort of bulking and cutting and stuff. And I said that social media has given people the impression that the process of bulking and cutting means you pile on all this pure muscle mass to your lower body. You know, you'll gain a bit of fat everywhere, but then when you cut down, you'll just lose fat off your stomach area or anywhere that you want to lose the fat, and your lower body will look the exact same as it did when you were bulking. And that's just not true. Everywhere will get smaller. This sort of idea that I'm sort of going over with some clients at the moment of leaning more into your natural build, if that makes sense. So if you are someone who stores a lot of body fat on your midsection, for example, but you really want to have bigger legs, but body fat just doesn't go there, it stores a lot more on your midsection. So when you bulk, you feel very, I'm not saying that you will feel very, I'm just saying that some people will feel very uncomfortable with the body fat on their midsection. By the way, I'm now just going in with a bit of powder bronzer, Fenty Beauty, same one I use on my eyes. People will feel very uncomfortable with their body fat on their midsection. but they like how their legs look because it does start to gain a bit of muscle and a bit more body fat. It's like leaning more into your body type and working out what you're willing to sacrifice. So a lot of women's concerns are like having a bigger lower body but keeping their stomach as small as possible. And depending on your genetics, that's just not going to be possible. For a lot of people, they are going to have to pick to an extent, because I'm not saying you can't, you just have to stay as you are. I'm just saying to an extent, most women will have to pick between having a slightly fluffier look to their body, maybe a bigger waist, carrying a bit more body fat on their stomach, but having bigger legs, bigger glutes, feeling really, you know, liking that look on themselves. Or they would have to pick maybe sacrificing a bit of size on their lower body for maintaining a tighter looking stomach, because that's what they are more comfortable with. But a lot of people can't have both. They can't have a huge lower body and a really tight, tiny waist. It's not how some people's genetics work. It's not how their, you know, favoured muscles that build quicker and look biggest work. It's not how their body fat storage works, because a lot of the people who have really big lower bodies and tiny, itty bitty little, like shredded stomachs, like very low body fat on their stomach, they don't store much body fat on the stomach, and they might genetically have advantages in terms of building muscle in their lower body, but they also store fat on their lower body, which helps to enhance further the size of their lower body. So I would like to introduce people to the concept of leaning more in to your natural build. For example, I know now, having done a few cuts and bulks, and I'm currently on a cut at the moment, I am happy to sacrifice a bit of size on my lower body to maintain a tighter looking waist and stomach, because I am more comfortable with that. The extra size that I get from being at a higher body fat percentage on my midsection and on my upper body is not, it's not worth it for me. I'm not comfortable like that. So for me personally, I would rather sacrifice a bit of lower body size to feel more comfortable in my upper body, because for me, fat storage, mainly my upper body, and then towards the end of a bulk, it does start going on my midsection. The thing with me is I'm very like narrowly built, like my rib cage is narrow, so I still look very petite in my midsection even when I'm bulking, but I do store body fat there, if that makes sense. So it's narrow, but there is more body fat there, if that makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want anyone to listen to that and think I'm built like that, like is there something wrong with me, like should I be doing what Amy's doing? It's a personal thing. It's completely personal to you, and it's how you want to look, and no one else should be able to tell you how you should or shouldn't look. Now I'm going in with my Charlotte Tilbury Peachgasm, the wand thing basically. But social media, going back to like body image and stuff, social media makes it out as though you can have everything all at once. You can have the tiniest itty bittiest of waists, and you can have the biggest roundest of glutes. And I've coached a lot of people over the past 3 years, and I work exclusively with women, and I'm not saying this to put people off going after their goals, because for some people that is possible, but for most women it is not possible naturally. Surgically, that's a whole different story, but naturally it's not possible. It's a bit of a pipe dream. You know, these programs that promise to like round your glutes out and snatch your waist, they'll probably grow your glutes, and they might have some core work in there that helps to develop your abs and like the look of your abs, but it's not going to snatch your waist or change your bone structure. And the concept of really snatching your waist and growing your glutes at the same time, for most people, again, I'm not saying everyone, there'll be genetic outliers, it's a pipe dream. So the concept of, and to be fair, it's actually my friend Alicia who sort of sparked this idea in me a while ago, because she's quite tall and more on like the leaner side, and she doesn't like, she's tried to like gain weight, and every time she does it, she doesn't really like how she looks everywhere else. So she was like, I've just sort of accepted that like I'm a bit of a leaner build and I can build some muscle, but she was like, I don't want to do the whole like bulking thing because it makes me uncomfortable everywhere else. So shout out to her, because she sort of spawned the idea of what I would call leaning more into your natural body type. And I feel like going back to the topic that people wanted me to speak about, of sort of getting your body goals and the sort of reality, it's sort of, that's a good little tip for that, which is, you know, if you've got to your body goals but now you're sort of picking at other things, maybe think more about how you are naturally built and lean more into that, you know, play to your advantages, if you will, for the look that you want, if that makes sense. But yeah, I do think there's like a huge misconception that if you, as soon as you reach your body goals, that'll be it, and then you'll just maintain it and you'll be super happy. And like I said, I don't doubt that that will work for some people, but I don't think that's the case for a lot of people who are heavily involved in social media or heavily involved in consuming fitness content on social media. You've also got to keep in mind, always keep this in mind guys, a lot of the stuff that you see online, first of all, it could be doctored. By the way, I'm just going in with Kylie Winter Kissed over that blush now. First of all, it could be doctored images, you just don't know. Second of all, people might lie about timelines. Third of all, I will say this until I am blue in the face, the algorithms on social media do not favour small, realistic transformations. They favour big, wow, oh my god, crazy transformations and crazy body shapes, crazy body types, like, you know, the real like genetic outliers. But because they are so pushed out by algorithms, by the way, just to make sure everything's like blended smoothly, I take a little bit of the Kylie blush on my eyeshadow brush and I just sort of blend the corners in with my eye powder. Gives me sort of like a pinky under eye look as well, which I actually quite like. So you might think that there's something wrong with you because everything you're seeing on social media is like crazy 3-month transformations. That is not the norm. It's the top percentage, but because it gets pushed out a lot, you think it's the norm, and it's just not. So yeah, I hope that can maybe make people feel a bit better about their fitness journey, because it can definitely be very disheartening. And I would hate for people to put all their eggs in one basket, in the sense that they would think that when they reach their body goals, that will be it and they'll be completely happy. You will, I promise you, a lot of you, especially if you're on the younger side like me, you will move the goalposts. You will move the goalposts. There will be something else for you to pick at when you get to that point. For a lot of people, not for everyone, but for a lot of people, there'll be something else to pick at. And if you don't learn to enjoy the process, enjoy going to the gym, enjoy the food that you're eating, find a balance between socializing and reaching your goals, if you don't find that balance and that enjoyment of the process, you're going to end up in a really bad spot, because you will get to the end goal and you will feel so, you might have like a couple weeks of thinking, whoa, like hit my goal weight or hit my goal measurements for my glutes. And then after a few weeks, you'll think, well, what's next? It's human nature. It doesn't make you a bad person to think like that. But the couple of things that will help is having performance goals for your strength training, have performance goals that you want to hit, and also just enjoying the process and enjoying working towards goals. Because if you're not enjoying it, it's just punishing yourself. And considering you'll never be happy with the end goal in a lot of cases, it's not really a good way to go about things. And then the last thing, which I just have to put you guys onto, is the allllll number 8 light and wispy eyelashes. These are like my favourite eyelashes, and they're 3/4 length. If you have slightly smaller eyes like I do, I am a small-eyed woman, but if you have slightly smaller eyes, I cannot recommend enough a 3/4 lash. You are going to find it way more flattering on your eye. Every single time I've been putting a full lash, like a full very intense lash, I just don't like how it looks on my eyes. It makes me look a lot older than I am, which I'm just not trying to do. And it also just makes my eyes look very sort of droopy and just a bit, it just really takes over my eyes and just doesn't flatten my eye shape at all. These 3/4 lashes, there's a couple different numbers that I use, but the number 8s I found in a 3-pack, which is why I bought them. These are just my favourite lashes. Like, they just look so good. However, on the road to achieving those aesthetic goals, just make sure that you are really enjoying the process, and be aware that when you reach that, it might not be this euphoric feeling of like, I've reached my goal, like that's it, like I'm done sort of thing. You might not have that moment. It might be more of a, you might have like a sort of empty feeling, or you might be like, well, what's next? And then you'll shift the goalpost. Just know that it is something that happens, and it is something that people do. I'm not saying that, you know, looking a certain way won't boost your happiness at all. It can really boost your confidence, and it can help you feel better. You know, I've had surgeries. I know that things can actually aesthetically change how you feel and change your confidence and just give you a sort of new lease of life. I get that, but it's not going to be the sort of like absolutely life-altering thing that you might think it is going into it. That's all I would say. Yeah, I just really love these lashes. I just think they're, whoa, very, very pretty. And then just to blend my natural lashes with my falsies, Kylash, love this mascara. I know she's a bit controversial. I know that a lot of people don't like the Kardashians and Jenners, but I actually really like this mascara. The only thing I don't like about it is it's not hard to get off. You can get it off. It's not waterproof or anything. I don't think it is anyway. But I feel like after I use it for like 3 days after, there's just a dark residue around my eyes, and every time I rub my eyes, more mascara comes off. It's like no amount of cleaning my eyes will get it off. So that's something to be aware of. But obviously you won't really see the full effect of this, but when I have no lashes on, this mascara is honestly actually really good. It makes my eyelashes look very, 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 very good. I'm a big, big, big fan. feel like the last time I did one of these videos I was like crying about my confidence crisis I was having, so I feel like I probably owe everyone that watched that a bit of an update. So yeah, an update on my nose and how I'm feeling about it, because I mentioned after I got it done quite a lot of people were very shocked that I didn't get a tiny little ski slope nose. I mean, if we look at my nose, she's not like a tiny little nose. She's a straight nose, but she's not tiny. She's not super scooped out. She's more of a straighter looking nose. But when I went in for my surgery, I didn't want a scooped out nose. And I said this so many times before I got it done, but afterwards people still seemed to be shocked. Maybe people thought I was saying that because I thought people would give me shit if I admitted to wanting that. But people still seemed very shocked that I didn't end up with that nose, despite the fact I said so many times before I got it done, I don't want to look like I've had my nose done. Not that there's anything wrong with it, I just didn't want that on my face. And afterwards, I mentioned in my last like sort of chatty video, I got quite teary-eyed about it, that people had just made comments constantly about like, why didn't I get it smaller? Why didn't I get it more scooped out? Etc, etc. Those comments have definitely calmed. I'll get the odd one every so often being like, you know, there's no difference, like you can't even tell. I feel like the sign of good work is if you can't tell too much. I wouldn't personally say you can't tell at all, but I feel like that's not a bad thing. People say it as though it's a really good diss, and I'm like, it's not the diss that you think it is. It's actually quite a good thing that people might not be able to tell that I've had my nose done. I just don't really care. I'm happy with it ultimately, and that is what matters. And to be honest, going to therapy has definitely helped with that as well. Obviously, I mentioned as well, and this is actually something I was speaking about on Instagram not so long ago. I think I mentioned in my last video where I was like having a confidence crisis and very upset that I sort of felt that there was a pressure to sort of look a certain way, whether it's body type, you know, for example, you know, the tiniest waist and then like massive legs, massive glutes, super round hips, which I'm just not built that way. I'm just not going to look like that. That's not how my body is built. And then obviously I spoke about like the pressure I sort of felt to I felt like I didn't really know how I wanted to look, because I felt like it was being so impacted by social media and stuff, and I did speak about that, but I feel like I've sort of clarified a bit about that when talking about like body image and like how I currently feel. Obviously I'm currently on a cut because I do want to be a little bit leaner, just because that's what I'm more comfortable with. I don't think I would have ever admitted to that before, but I definitely do think I do probably have some body image issues. I feel like because I come from a background of wanting to really gain weight, I can really struggle when it comes to going on a cut, because I will perceive myself as a lot smaller than I am, so I think I'm losing all my muscle and all that sort of stuff. I definitely do struggle with that, the same way that someone who comes from a fat loss background and that was their sort of in into things, if they were to go on a growth phase, they maybe wouldn't be able to see the muscle they were building. They would just sort of hyper focus on the fat that they might be gaining on their body. So I definitely do struggle, but I'm just persevering because I know realistically I do want to lean out a little bit, and maybe I'm certain for saying that and admitting that, but I do want to lean out a little bit. It really feels like, and it felt like this a year ago, so the trend is clearly still in. It just feels like unless you've got that baddie, I feel like everyone was so obsessed with looking unique that everyone's ended up looking the same way, and it's sort of that like baddie aesthetic, like, you know, siren IG baddie aesthetic, and that's definitely still in. But I spoke about it on Instagram and so many people messaged me about it, so I know that it's a relatable thing. It can make people who are very, very, very beautiful, very, very gorgeous, very pretty, but might not fit into the IG baddie aesthetic. It can have you feeling like you're ugly, or like you don't have it, you're not that good looking. You are gorgeous, you are beautiful, you just don't fit into that aesthetic, and that is okay. Now I feel like I'm sort of just more confident in how I look, and I don't fit the IG baddie aesthetic. I know that some people will think I do. I personally don't think that I do fit into that aesthetic, personally. Facially, I don't think I fit into it. I think I have quite I don't really have like the baby face. Going back to the nose thing, my nose is very straight, it's not scooped, it's not the sort of baddie look. I would personally say I have quite strong features. I wouldn't say I'm the most unique looking person in the world, but I do think some of my features are quite strong. Otherwise, I don't feel like I fit into that aesthetic. I'm definitely just more on the petite side, but I'm okay with that, and it doesn't mean I'm ugly. And I feel like the last time I spoke, when I was really upset and crying, I really did feel ugly. Like, I'm just going to be completely honest, I felt ugly. I didn't feel good about myself. I felt like I made a massive mistake with my nose. I felt like, and I don't want to say other people were making me feel that way, because I have to take responsibility for maybe having a lower self-esteem, which then means I will take things a lot more personally. I don't want to say it's other people's fault entirely, but I do think people should choose their words a bit more carefully. You know, it was having me thinking I'd done my nose wrong. I should have got it a lot smaller. Maybe I should have gone to Turkey and got like the turkey nose look. Maybe I should get more like filler and stuff in my face. Maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that, maybe I need to, you know, really gain a lot of weight and all this sort of shit. I felt really ugly. You can see it if you go back and watch that video. Like, I don't go back and watch that video because even when I was editing it, I was like, this is actually so sad. But I do feel a lot better now, and I just want everyone to know, no matter what body type you are, whether it's in or out at the moment, no matter how your face looks, no matter what aesthetic, can we just stop fucking categorizing women into different aesthetics? What type of pretty are you? What type of, are you a gorgeous girl? Are you a beautiful girl? Are you a sexy girl? Do you have sex appeal, or are you just pretty? All this shite on TikTok makes people feel like, you know, if they don't fit into this, if they don't fit into this current trend of being like, oh, really dark feminine aesthetic, really sexy, that they're not beautiful. You are beautiful. Beauty, as ironic as it sounds, not ironic, as cliche as it sounds, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Beauty will look different to everyone. Maybe not everyone will find you beautiful, but that doesn't mean that you are not beautiful. Just because you don't fit into the current trend, whether it's body, face, hair, whatever, it doesn't mean that you are not beautiful. There will always be someone who will find you beautiful. I promise you, you are beautiful. Just because you don't fit into the baddie aesthetic, it doesn't mean you are not beautiful. There is not one category of beauty. There is not one way to look. And that is how I would like to finish off this video. But yeah, tapered down, this would be my everyday makeup look. And then this, maybe I would switch up the eyes and maybe do something slightly smokier on my eyes for like a real night out look. But this is pretty much my makeup, and it's very consistent. Like, the only new thing really is this Kosas concealer. Everything else is very consistent. I've always loved the Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. Everything's pretty consistent. So yeah, this is the finished makeup look. Yeah, like I said, not a makeup artist. If you were wondering about my hair, by the way, for Beyonce, I curled it with my Tresemme wand, which was literally like 10 quid, and then pin curled it and left it for like 4 hours and then brushed it out because it was very like big and voluminous and bouncy. But yeah, I will see you in the next video. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to and you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. More gym vlogs and fitness content coming. I just wanted to film this because it was quite highly requested, and I just want to have a bit of a catch up chin wag. But yeah, have a gorgeous day. I might try and post this today actually.